43. It was just being built, you know.
I was born at Prospect Heights in November of 1945.
I moved in here with my kids. My husband was in the hospital.
I was born in Prospect Heights in 1953.
I was born and raised at Prospect, 1969.
By the late 1930s, the country had passed the worst years of the Great Depression, but many low-income families were still struggling to find decent, affordable housing. The United States Housing Act of 1937 authorized loans to local public housing authorities to build low-rent houses. In a period of radical reform, public housing was yet another ambitious new idea to help families out of poverty through government aid. In the summer of 1941, construction started on 310 dwelling units situated between Beveridge Hill Avenue and Prospect Street. This would become Prospect Heights.
William L. Connolly, chairman of the Pawtucket Housing Authority, said applications will be accepted from prospective tenants beginning next Monday. Connolly emphasized that the order in which applications are filed will have nothing to do with the letting of apartments, that being dependent upon family income, ability to pay rent, and condition of homes in which applicants now live. Pawtucket Times, September 23, 1941.
Well, my mom and dad and my older brother lived there, and my brother told me it was 1942 when he remembers living there. He's 3.5 years older than me. I was born at Prospect Heights in November of 1945. And my dad was home. He was a soldier. He was in the Army, and he had just gotten home from World War II. And I was so little, I don't know how many soldiers actually lived there. We lived there. I lived there for the first 10 years of my life.
I moved in here with my kids. My husband was in the hospital. He felt he could take care of his family, and then he was sick and he couldn't. But by the time that I moved here, I couldn't afford a bottle of milk, you know, and I had to do something. And of course, he didn't want me to, I didn't even mention it to him that I had decided to move here. I came here and asked if I would be able to be eligible to come in, and they said, oh, certainly.
I think we moved here 42, 43. It was just being built, you know. It was one of the early houses we moved into.
Dad, I said, he was sick.
He was in the hospital there.
Yeah.
And he had a nervous breakdown.
And this was, I guess, like a mother's aid type project at that time, and you know, for people who needed help. And it filled up real fast, I'll tell you.
And we moved there in 1951. I was 11 years of age. My dad took a massive stroke at the age of 33. That was in 1950. Mother had 8 of us. The house was being condemned. There was no heat, okay? And someone from the church came down and said that he was going to put some wheels in motion to get the family moved to Prospect Heights. We had a visit from Miss Hodge. She was the administrator here in 1950-51. She came to the house to interview my mother and to check the house out, and of course she found that it was condemned. Made arrangements, and we moved, like I say, in 1951. So to us, Prospect Heights was a palace.
I never had any bad opinions about it.
No, and like they say, people on the outside didn't either, because you know, it was something new, and I don't think there was many of them around at that time.
In school, kids talking in school, and oh, those kids live in the Heights, or those kids live at Prospect Heights, and don't play with them, stuff like that. But I can't understand, if you could have lived next door to them, it was okay. On the same street, they were fine. But because you lived in Prospect Heights, it was poor people.
Then it was for needy people. I mean, they were taking the highway, they were building the construction of the highway, so all those people from Water Street, River Street, Elm Street, all those streets, they had no place to go. No place to go.
We were safe, and I can remember we left the doors unlocked. That's how safe we felt there. And if there were any crime, my parents sheltered us from that crime. So I didn't know of any crime that really went on when I lived there.
I could walk around at night. Later on, when I had boyfriends, I used to walk around. There was parks all over the place, and you could go and sit down. And I had boyfriends, and we'd walk all around at night and never had any fear at all.
And then we'd also play baseball there too. And when we'd hit a home run, we'd break someone's window.
Yeah, it's the way it was laid out.
Yeah.
I'm sure they never moved the buildings, so
They-
they're
they-
all the
they-
same.
Donald Pond was in back of where the administrative offices at Prospect Street, Prospect Heights, and we would go swimming there. It was a nice facility, and I remember most about that pond. They had like a waterfall going into the pond, and I used to go sit by the waterfall and just put my feet in the water.
Jake Donalds.
Jake Donalds, we all go down here in the summertime
Better known
swimming.
as what? Polio Pond?
Yeah, what was it?
Polio Pond.
I don't know what it was, but it was.
Jake Donalds was the.
It was nice.
Yeah.
And sadly, one woman, one family, she didn't, they gave us precautions. Stay out of the water and, get vaccinated and so forth. And her attitude was, if I get it, I get it. Well, lo and behold, she did come down with it. She was paralyzed. She gave birth to a baby in an iron lung. So how sad is that? Not to take the precautions when it's for your own sake.
You would hear of someone else's child getting it, and it was, I really was scared. And that's why I said to my husband, I said, we've got to get the kids out of here, because I'm afraid that they're going to come down with it.
The United States in the 1950s experienced a new era of prosperity, but Pawtucket did not share the same success. Many local industries disappeared before the Great Depression and had not come back. Nor was Pawtucket spared from the polio epidemic that was going on throughout the country.
The Heights block wasn't known by the number painted on it, but rather by the name of a family residing in one of its apartments. Whim, familiarity, or legend dictated just who deserved the honor, and I don't recall arguments over any choice. I believe the same goodwill holds true, especially around Memorial Day, when Al Haslam and Billy Moore come to mind, and thoughts fly from blocks 17 and 36. 13W and 35E by Thomas McDade.
My father went in the military, and he met my uncle Paul, my uncle Perry, and my uncle Earl, who were also in the military, the Air Force. And that's how he met my mother, through them. I guess they dated for a year or so, and then when she became pregnant, they got married. They moved to the Heights, Prospect Heights. There was a 3-generation thing going on. It wasn't just that I moved into the Heights with my parents. My father lived here, and his mother and father lived here.
And we moved to Prospect Heights, I think in 1960, and we lived there until I was graduated from the 6th grade. So I guess from 1960 to 1970, we lived in Prospect Heights with my mother, my brother. He was a Vietnam vet, so he was mostly in Vietnam during a great deal of that time. And my 2 sisters. I have 2 sisters. One is 1 year older and one is 2 years older. So all 3 of us grew up in Prospect Heights.
When we moved in, my mom and my stepfather, we had 3 children. And 273 only had 2 bedrooms. Then more children came along, and 4 children were born during the duration of our living here at Prospect Heights.
I love living in Prospect Heights. It was just a nice, safe environment. You knew your neighbors, you could play outside, you could bike down the street. If you did something wrong, you could almost be assured that somebody would tell my mother, because everybody watched out for everybody else. It was a great place to grow up in.
I liked the fact that you could knock on the door and say, "Can we borrow a cup of sugar?
Right.
We'll give it back to you later, you know.
That's right.
You want to come out and play?" Or one mom would stand in the door and watch you run home at night if it was dark.
That's right.
Just as you got there, scare you. Oh, boy.
I'm not sure how the saying came about. Maybe Teddy, who knew karate, coined it. Suddenly every Heights kid was saying, "Mother's aid, don't want to hear it." Many had the right. Their boys' clubs memberships were free. They got commodities, boxes of powdered milk, blocks of American cheese, big silver cans of stew meat and gravy, and tins of peanut butter you could plunge both hands into. A Mother's Aid cry was the answer to everything. From Mother's Aid by Thomas McDade.
Sometimes wouldn't tell the friends who lived outside of the Heights, we used to call it just the Heights, that I lived there, you know, because I was embarrassed, because my mother was poor, my mother was on welfare, so you really just didn't want them to know. And we always figured that anytime anything went wrong, they blame it on the project kids. Whether that was just in my imagination or not, it's just how we all felt.
Probably just because we were in a low-income community and labeled as the Heights kids. I don't know if they thought, I really don't know what they thought. People still have the same feelings about it overall. It's just the community living.
For a long time, until I would say, maybe until I hit 40, I wouldn't tell people where I came from. But then I started to change, and it was like, okay,
Now we're proud.
let's see who I can shock.
Yeah.
Let's see who I can say, wow, really, you're from the Heights? Oh yeah, that's where I was born.
And I'd be on my bicycle following her, and she was a paper girl delivering papers. And come to find out, after we became really, really close friends, is that the only reason why she talked to me is because she thought I was going to beat her up, you know, because I was from the projects. You know, we laugh about that today. And her mother used to let her stay over at my house, and she loved staying at my house. You know, she loved the atmosphere. And she, to me, was one of the rich kids that lived outside of the Heights, and she was my best friend, and she's still my best friend today. You know, and we just laugh about, you know, how goofy we were and all the stuff that we used to do. But most of the stuff that we did was always at my house and not at her house, you know. So she loved being there because it had that sense of community.
I live in Cumberland now, and I've been in the same house for going on 22 years, and I can tell you I probably know 6 neighbors' names surrounding me. But in the Heights, we knew everybody. We knew them. We knew people by the block that they lived in.
We moved out in about 1970, and if I recall, there had been a little tension in Prospect Heights at that time because there was different diverse groups coming in that were kind of like fighting for a little power there. There were the African Americans. There were, because of the Vietnam War, there were a lot of Filipinos that came in. And there was just, I don't know, a lot of tension going on, and my mother moved us. I can't specifically say that we were caught up in any of it, but it wasn't a good time. The late 60s and 70s were turbulent for anything. There was anti-Vietnam protesting going on. There was the civil rights issues going on. There were a lot of immigrants coming over again because of the Vietnam War, and it just wasn't good.
Living next to Prospect Heights is like living next to the city dump. It stinks, it's noisy, and it's dirty.
They've broken down all the windows in my house. I've replaced them 1,000 times. What am I supposed to do?
Providence Journal, May 24th, 1988.
The 1970s through the 1990s were a turbulent time. Although public housing saved many families from homelessness, there were insufficient funds for security, basic repairs, and programs to help families out of poverty. What was once seen as a new start was now a last and dangerous resort.
13 people were charged with cocaine dealing at Prospect Heights and ordered without bail, after nearly 50 police officers from across the state raided the public housing project at dawn yesterday. Providence Journal, November 23, 1988.
I was born and raised at Prospect, 1969. I was born at Memorial Hospital. And obviously grew up in the 70s and the 80s here at Prospect. With me, I grew up with a single mom and 3 siblings, so it was a little tough. And she worked full time, so we did get food stamps. So we were somewhat, to do. We were well off, I would say, as far as subsidized housing goes.
La primera vez yo tuve un fuego y me fui, después volví. Y volví a aplicar y volvieron y me dieron apartamento. Y después vino mi papá y como no podía subir escaleras, que estaba inválido, me fui. Y cuando él se fue hacia Puerto Rico, volví de nuevo.
We stayed out of the trouble. A lot of the trouble that was going on, it was, somewhat gangs. There was a lot of drugs. I would say, that would be the primary. There was a lot of drugs rampant. People would come right up to you. Asking, no age, no barriers to it, asking about that. But as I said, when we were growing up, we went to the Boys and Girls Club. We used, the CYOs, and so we branched out of Prospect at an early age.
Yo me crié con mi abuela. Yo no me crié ni con mi mamá ni con mi papá. Me crié con mi abuela y tuve una vida bien con mi mamá y con mi abuela ya tengo 72 años y yo nunca he usado droga, yo nunca he estado en pelea, yo nunca he estado presa. Yo vivo mi vida como la vivo.
Back then you wouldn't even think how I would get out of the 70s and 80s and become the person I am today. But hey, you live it, not everybody get out of it. I've seen the worst. And I think that, it's sad to say, that hardened me. So I was able to see all of that and be able to, veer away from those and just surround myself with good people. And I would like to think I'm the leader anyway. And I hung out with all the older crowd, and they showed me what not to do, what to do, and just kept me on the straight and narrow to where I am today.
Para mí, todo bien. Porque como yo nunca he estado en la calle y nunca me he metido con nadie, todo el mundo me conoce. So, nunca tuve problemas, ni nunca no he tenido problemas con decir aquel, ni aquella, ni nada. Siempre he estado en mi casa.
They glorified all the bad stuff, but there was a lot good going on. There was a lot of pieces. The school, Anna J. Burns, we had a lot of great relationships with the teachers there, and they didn't mind that it was just in walking distance from Prospect, and I thought that helped me out tremendously. I couldn't say that for the other kids who have to walk to Fallon Memorial or go to Shea High School. But as I said, I was fortunate enough to go to St. Raphael Academy, but that's because, my background, my family background, it was strong in, they're keeping me on the straight and narrow.
Y como iban estando un poquito elebrestado, ¿sabes? Gente y eso. Yo siempre he vivido con mi puerta abierta y nunca me ha pasado nada.
The people that I grew up with from the 70s to the 80s are now, today, we have, people who are professionals as far as teachers, police officers that I've grown up with now, and I'm in my mid-40s. So the people that I hung around with, I surrounded myself with good people. When I grew up here in the 70s and 80s, there were still a lot of great people here, but we just got notified about in the papers and in the newspaper of all the fatalities that I told you about. The stabbings that were going on in the low-income housing. We didn't have security then, as we do now. So it was just a free-for-all then.
The Pawtucket Housing Authority and the federal government recognized that bold action needed to be taken to fix the situation at Prospect Heights. First of all, they hired a security force to patrol the facility. Secondly, they started major construction projects to improve living conditions by repairing homes, fixing lights, and installing a fence surrounding the complex. Third, and possibly most important, they gave funding for educational and prevention programs to help Prospect residents.
I used to drive by in better days and say, oh, I wouldn't live in a place like that. Since then, I found that judging is wrong. No one ever knows where life will take them. There have been many changes, with each passing administration making conditions better. Good things take time, if it is going to be right for all concerned. I am proud to say I live in Prospect Heights with all its new changes, and I'm sure many more to come. Dorothy Remisowitz, Pawtucket Times, September 25th, 1996.
By the late 1990s and early 2000s, Prospect Heights was completely different. The development had been renamed 560 Prospect Street to try to get rid of the stigma of the previous name, but much else had changed. Buildings that were once run down with dilapidated doors and windows were now fixed. The playground was clean, and parents did not fear for their children's lives as they walked home from school.
And the kids came up with the name CSI between themselves, creating solutions for independence. And the program's been going every Wednesday. We don't ever stop, except holidays. DARE, they'll come do like a 3-week thing. We have music people, Terrell Osborne, he comes, he's there. When he comes, he's like 6 weeks, 8 weeks. And the kids, write their own songs, they do videos, they've performed at numerous different places.
I moved here in 1993, December 1993. I moved here on my own with my 2 sons. My oldest was 12 and my youngest was to be born at that time. He's 22 now. So I've been here all this time.
I'm a CNA. I became CNA since I moved here. I'm married and I have 3 kids, about to have 4. And the reason that I moved here, I was sick, I couldn't work, and I couldn't afford to pay more rent. And my counsel told me about this project, and she told me to go apply in downtown, and I went, and I was lucky, and they called me that they have a house available for me, so I moved there.
I will never forget the first night I came to Prospect Heights. Back then, it was 13 to 19, the age, so everybody was a teenager. And I remember when I first walked in, they had a big canvas covered the whole day room floor, and they were painting them, and there were like 20 kids. Maria Rodriguez is she's probably 28 years old now, has a 5-year-old son. When they introduced me, she was 15 or 14. She was the first person I was introduced, and she came up and she hugged me and kissed me on the cheek, and I didn't know how to react. I was like, who is this child? I don't know. And everybody came up, and like the girls hugged me, all the boys shook my hand. I was like, wow, this might not be too bad. And so from the first day, I was welcomed.
They see it in a negative way because they always hear the bad things that happen here from the past. That's like a little stain that is going to stay here in Prospect.
Most of the people said, oh, this place is bad. A lot of people sell drugs and stuff like that. But when I came here, I had no concern because nobody, I didn't see nothing bad.
The neighborhood, to me, feels safe. And I'm used to being Pawtucket, and I like it. I like it here.
When I tell people, oh, yeah, what are you doing? I tell them, oh, yeah, Wednesdays I'm at Prospect. Everybody's always like, whoa. And I always tell people, that's like my favorite site. It was always, like I was always welcome there.
Oh, my neighbors are wonderful. In this building, everybody, they're all women in this building. And like yesterday with the snow, I knock at the door, let's move the car, they're gonna come and clean, and everybody come and respond. So we help each other. No problem with my neighbors, and I like it, and it's like a little team.
And for me, this community is good because they do a lot of stuff to involve the kids, which is wonderful. So they have summer program, like after school program, and they help a lot of moms because most of the time moms doesn't have time to sit with the kids and do homework. And for me, it's a huge opportunity. It's good.
I think it's sad that we're not here longer hours and more days because the kids really do want to come. Even if they come and they're not doing, they're just here and they're listening. They are learning something. And I know it's good for the kids because, like I said, I've been here 12 years. I know so many kids who were raised here, who don't live here now. I run into people constantly. Everywhere I go, stores, everywhere, restaurants, I'll run into somebody that was in the program, and they're working, they have kids, they're married.
The future of Prospect is unknown. As funds continue to be cut for public housing projects across the country, there is a fear that this trend could negatively affect Prospect. A study in 2010 showed that repairs and updates to Prospect would cost $18.4 million. 65% of those repairs are critical and must be implemented within the next 5 years. The 75-year-old water and sewer system is in questionable condition. There are problems with heating, mold, moisture, and not enough exterior lighting. Solving these issues is necessary to providing healthy and safe affordable housing, but the costs are nearly 10 times the total of the Pawtucket Housing Authority's annual budget from HUD.
We're really trying to work very hard to do a redevelopment of Prospect Street, and we applied for a new program called the Rental Assistance Demonstration Program, which would allow us to leverage debt. We've got applications in for low-income housing tax credits that would help layer the subsidy needed to do a major effort. We're looking, hopefully, state bond money, and also looking to get a historic designation so that we can get historic tax credits. So we're trying to piece all the puzzle together. We have to guarantee that everybody has a place to live who lived there pre-redevelopment. So if there's any relocation, they're able to go back. But most people will be staying in place while we do the redevelopment, and they're all guaranteed a place to live.
For me, it's beautiful because they plan to redo all the house, which I can't wait to see. So I think it would be much better because they help people a lot, and then they worry about people, especially kids.
20 years from now, I mean, the path they're going on right now is the path that that I like. We are here, as I said, we're invested in the people, and I see that, and I do it daily, And I just think they're going in a good position. They're in a good position right now where they're going, and I wouldn't change anything.
It's still a place for the needy. They have no place to go. They can't afford to pay the rents out there. Who can afford $1,000 a month if you've got 2 or 3 children? You can't. You can't. So I assume that, it's still the same. Needy people needing a place over their head.
So what that, your mother may not have a lot of money, you may not have a father, you may not have enough money, to buy a car, but just keep with your dreams, keep going. There's nobody that can stop you but yourself, and you have nobody to blame but yourself, and I'm proof of that.
And my husband is done with college. He went to CCRI and then he transferred to Bryan University. So he's done with a bachelor's in economy. So it's this project for me, it's a good help because here you can change your life completely. And I'm planning to go back to school to finish my career.